Angel Heart Radio. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is an exciting day because I've got Philip Duxfield with me. Hi, Philip.
Good morning, Anaya. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. Good to see you, Anaya. Hope you're well.
Thanks. Yes, thank you. I am. Everyone, this is such a huge time for us all in so many ways right now. I mean, we don't even have to say what ways, and you already know. So, today we're going to talk about when shifting your mindset feels challenging, because we know that shifting our mindset is a powerful tool, but sometimes that tool feels like it's way at the bottom of the toolbox, out in the shed, locked away, don't know how to get to it, right?
Yeah. And so shall we start by going like what is mindset? What are we talking about when we're talking about mindset? Does everybody have a clear understanding of what a mindset is, where it comes from? Just shall we delve into that a little bit before we get going on our trajectory, wherever that may be?
Yeah, do it, mate.
I mean, you tell me now, when you think of the word mindset and you think of your mindset, what are the images or the feelings that sort of spring to your mind?
For me, it's about focus, intention, and understanding where my thoughts and focus is presently going or has been going. And sometimes that is really easy for me. And other times, like now, it feels like it's just lost in a sea of haze. That's what I think of.
Mm. Yeah, so straight away you start to hear two kinds of mindsets, which is the one that's done to you and the one you do to yourself,
Like it.
right? And perhaps that's probably a good place to start. And I guess that's kind of what the whole conversation is going to be about this morning, is how perhaps do you go from the mindset that was done to you to the one that you want to do to yourself? Because I mean, if you were setting your own mindset, obviously you'd be like, let's set a positive attitude. Let's
Let's
believe
do
good
it.
things are going to happen. Yeah, exactly. So to begin with, perhaps let's go, how does our mindset, which we've talked a lot on part in some of our previous discussions, but if we can spend a minute talking about where does our pre-programmed mindset, or the one that's impacted and imprinted on us, where does that come from?
Oh, I like this, Philip. This is so good because already you're showing us that there's within that simple phrase of shifting your mindset, there's a lot in there that we may not have considered. So I love it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, so mindset. I mean, okay, and we're breaking it down a bit further. There's a mindset that has been given to you, which some of it you'll be aware of, and some of it you'll be unaware of. That little nasty thing we call the subconscious, which is sometimes working against us. So the easiest thing to address when you're dealing with your day-to-day mindset in your modern, probably adult life, is the things in your life that happen to you day to day, which are programming your mindset. So, Anaya, I can already see your brain going, you're thinking about some things day to day, which are programming your mindset. Tell
Yeah.
me about those.
Okay, so right now I can see, because without going into details, and really we don't even need to, there's so much going on here in Australia right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So my initial reaction was one of lots of things, actually, and choosing to shift that to going to that internal place, um, instead of my mind going, you know, racing possibilities, restrictions, etc., going to the place inside of me that I ask myself, how am I really feeling about this? You know, and I'm feeling actually things are going to be tricky for a while, but I think they're going to be okay, right? I feel it's all going to come into much more of a balance. So that has been quite a journey of late, Philip. And
Yeah,
so it's disconnecting from what my mind's telling me, and my mind is a very active and busy place, right? It's always
Mhm.
going, like a lot, fast, to coming back to something, the peaceful place inside of me, which is so important to foster, nurture, experience, and expand.
I think you've touched on something really key there, which is your mindset is being programmed by the influences that you're exposed to day. And one of those major influences is current events. And so you're getting this impression like doom and gloom, man, there's a pandemic happening, and how will the economy recover? And what does it mean for me? But that's I think that's the key point that you touched on there, is what does it mean for me? Why is this affecting me? Am I worrying about things that are outside of my control? Am I trying to fix the pandemic in my own mind when I probably can't do that? So why is it affecting me? What are the emotional responses that I'm sensing when I'm processing these influences that are coming from the external world? Does that kind of sound on the right
Mm,
track?
very, very much so, actually, because I tend to not get too involved in the outside stuff with regards to news, all that sort of stuff. And yet, there obviously is still a great impact on me. And so having that understanding of those different components, I think is really, really good and important.
Yeah. I don't think we can live comfortably with our head buried in the sand. Let's not permit that. Some people are quite happy just to go, you know what, it's nothing to do with me, and I really don't need to know it, so I'm not going to bother to know it. And hey, if you can survive in your world without needing to know that stuff, more power to you at the end of the day, because we can't fix the pandemic on our own. There are things we can do. We can take care of ourselves. We can take care of the people around us. We can wear our masks. We can sanitize our hands. We can do those little things. But yeah, if you can successfully go through your day-to-day life and go, you know what, I don't need to watch the news. If it's super important, somebody will tell me. I've lived that way for a long time, and tell you actually works quite well. My anxiety levels went down quite a lot. But I'm definitely getting more back into that point now. I'm quite happy to know about current events, and sometimes I'm like, oh gee, that's a little bit concerning, but will it ever affect my day-to-day life? Probably not. And is my life in my corner of the universe going just fine? It generally is. So sometimes I still have to remind myself, bro, it's not your battle. Just focus on what you can control. Where's your circle of influence? Have we talked about that before, Anaya, the
Actually, we
circle of
haven't talked
influence?
about our circle of influence. No, I think that's a really good place for us to
Yeah,
be.
that's
Mm.
essentially what we're describing here as our circle of influence. And major issue I see with young people these days is they're so focused with things that are outside of their circle of influence, i.e., things that are outside of their control. They're worried about whether we're going to go to war with China. They're worried about whether the pandemic means they're not going to be able to buy a house in 50 years. These are all things that they cannot control now, and yet they're spending so much time focusing on it that they're literally drowning themselves in anxiety. So if you bring your circle of influence inside of things that you can control, what can I affect in my day-to-day life, and what can I do well? If I'm worried about buying a house in 50 years, maybe I'll start saving now. Maybe I'll start assessing my spending habits. That's within your control. And little things like that, boy, they can return so much power to yourself and make you feel much more in control of your life. So that's what we talk about when we say circle of influence.
Yeah, that actually makes a whole lot of sense, Philip, because, and sometimes that circle feels very, very small. Yet I think if well, for me anyway, by choosing to focus more on, as you say, that circle of influence that I do, not the size of it, right? That really does make a difference for me. And okay, so with the December 17 date coming up, without going into too much detail about it, whether or not, how that's going to affect me, that my initial reaction was, OMG. And then I got all other, lots of other different experiences of fear, outrage, etc., etc. But when I made that choice to come back into, and I didn't realize I was coming back into my circle of influence and going back within to ask what is the truth for me. And that's when I realized there was actually some stillness in there. It was my mind that was racing. So that's a really good understanding for me to have. That is my circle of influence, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and let me just celebrate you worrying about your little circle of influence, because until you get this little one really nailed and under control, you can't really move on to bigger things. But once this little one's under control and everything's like sort of taking care of itself, and you've got those great habits going, then the next step out, the bigger one, will start to seem really manageable and start to make sense, and your circle may get bigger. And I think that's how people go from helping out their neighbor to starting international aid agencies that feed starving children in South America and put backpacks before they go to school. They're take care of their little circle, and then get bigger and bigger and bigger.
So true. That's so true. And actually, now that you say that, I realize that once I started to shift my focus, my mindset, like to that, my circle of influence has gotten bigger. And I didn't get that connection until just now.
Well, look at you now. Now you're helping
great.
people all over the world, aren't you? And it's because your
So
circle of influence has grown.
it really has grown, yeah. And it's really exciting because it's not, the thing I love about this, Philip, is it is actually not about me. It's about the giving aspect. What can I do today that's of service to Angel Heart Radio? Whereas when I first began, it was like, what can I do today to get a bigger audience? Right? That's a natural question to ask yourself. But then I realized that what was the most important thing to me? That was a big question. Why am I really doing this? And I realized is you can see that sign, you matter. That's why I do this, because you guys matter, just like I do, just like Philip does. And it's supporting myself and all of you to at least come back to the possibility of asking yourself that question. Do I really matter to me? And if the answer is yes, or even a tiny little, not sure, then that's our circle of influence, right? We can build on that.
Yes, we can build on that, but it's a good place for it to start. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really the only place to start, because we're going within again.
Yeah,
everything out there is out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that in this place of building on influence, where we're trying to empower other people to empower other people and start this cascading wave of positivity and people helping people and people blessing people and and ongoing.
And that's the kind of influencer I want to be. I don't want to be an influencer of fashion or trends or whatever. I want to influence myself and others, at least give others the opportunity to have a think about it. Because, Philip, when we get right down to it, it's the little things that really move mountains. And that mountain might be fear or rejection or, even terror. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen, they're the sorts of mountains that I'm really interested in, because those mountains are made up of little pebbles that have been dropped in the same pile along the way, all through our lives. And when you look at the sum total of, you think, well, that's it, that's too big for me. If you just pick up one little bit, right? My circle of influence is this one little bit, and begin to work on that, or at least question, how do I really feel about this? And another big question I have is for myself, how much am I willing to love myself through this?
Okay. What does that mean to you?
That means to me that if I'm going through something really tough, my initial reaction is to give myself a hard time. Oh, you should be trying harder. You should know better. You're a spiritual, woman. You know the principles. Blah 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 blah. Work with the angels. Yada yada yada. But the fact of the matter is, I'm also just a human person. So, how much am I willing to love myself through this? Am I willing to nurture myself enough to say, you know what, Anaya? Yeah, you might not be. Your best between 1 and 10 might be 0.5 today. And that has to be okay for me on those days. I've had to learn how to set, look, the word boundaries is not, it is the right word, but it's not the word I want. I have learned to set.
Is it more manageable personal expectations that you can set for yourself?
And more loving parameters that to work within.
Yeah. Instead
of saying, come on, pick yourself up, get yourself out there, do the 50 million things you said you'd do today, because they're on your list. So you've got to do them. Sometimes it's important to up the list and say, okay, what's a manageable list today?
And isn't it funny that we have this inbuilt almost expectation that if you're going to do it, it must be done perfectly and you have to do everything all at once. And like, where does that come from? The reality is, if you do anything at all, it's 1,000 times better than nothing at all. I tell people all the time when they're having trouble getting to the gym and doing some exercise, just do anything. Just anything at all. If you can't go to the gym, go for a walk. If you go to the gym and you spend 10 minutes on a treadmill, fantastic. You did something. You got there. Your body is like, great. Anything is better than nothing at all. And especially in these little acts of kindness of trying to self-manage. Again, anything is better. Just little steps. Hey.
Yeah, that's
Because
it.
of course, the flip side of the coin is people don't think that they can do it all. And so they give up and they take these little steps towards darkness. And I think this is what we're seeing in society is people are getting less patient and less tolerant, and bad behavior is really on the rise. And it's because they're doing little steps backwards, which is just as influential and just as powerful.
It's exactly right. It's and we are so bombarded. We already know this, guys. I know you know it, and I know it too. And yet we are so bombarded with information. We are already overloaded. When was the last time you decided to actually not answer a text message that came in straight away? So I have a thing, and everybody knows this, except for family and close friends. If they really need me, I don't speak on the phone, except for to Beth. I have to be honest. I do often call to Beth. I don't speak on the phone after 6:30 at night because I need to settle down from the day. I need to get just quiet and clear. Whereas if I'm on the phone, my energy's ramped up, right? And that was a decision I made for myself. And it really works for me. So it means if I do want it, Beth said to me the other day, I was going to call you, but it's 12 minutes past 7 and I knew it was too late. And I said, well, guess what? Tonight, it's not too late for you. If Annie called me, I'd pick up the phone for Annie too. But, it's not an all or nothing for me. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, which is what you're saying, basically.
Yeah, but at least you're giving yourself permission to have some time just to recharge. And you're admitting to yourself you're human and you do need to step away to recharge because it's just the way it is. We can't keep going like a machine with infinite power. We don't have it. So
exactly right. And there is so much that goes on behind the scenes for Angel Heart Radio, Angel Light 777, the Angel Code. Some days I think I just don't know how I'm going to do everything. And that's where I've had to really learn, Philip. What does everything mean to me? Does everything mean getting all those things done? Or does everything mean doing what I can that feels balanced for me? And that has been major in my life because I want to do it all. And I want to do it all perfectly. And I want to be happy doing it. But I don't always have the energy to do that.
Yeah. Well, so in a way, you are already changing your mindset by redefining your parameters. I like the word you used there, parameters. That was quite cool.
The other day,
you've given yourself a future recipe for success for your mindset. So well done.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. It's been a real long journey for me to come to that place, because oftentimes what it is I'm such a people pleaser and such a rescuer as default. But I'm finding the more I step out of that default, the less that default feels solid in my life, right? The less it matters to me.
So what took its place? Because we always have to find that thing which matters to us. So now that you are not the rescuer, who have you become?
Oh, look, I'm still the rescuer in some ways. Don't get me wrong. I haven't magically figured it all out, but I've become much kinder to myself. I've become I've become a person who's more able to say, I'm sorry, I can't today or this week. And there's that rush of, my God, it's all going to fall apart if you don't do it, Anaya. They really need you. Come on, so I've become the person that says, okay, fine. I hear what you're saying. That's old. I don't want to be there. That's old. That's my old story. I don't want to tell that story anymore. And I'm the only person on this whole planet with the power to stop narrating that story.
Yeah, I think over the last, especially 12 months, not that I was against it because I was really ready to, but I had this constant voice in the back of my head, which to me, that's my God voice going, it's time to slow down. You don't have to worry so much about making money. You don't have to worry so much about making everything happen on your own. You know what? Just give that stuff to me. And how about you just slow down and take a rest? Which was super difficult for me because I had lots of work, which was great because I was making some decent money for the first time in my life. So when God said slow down, I both wanted to because I liked my free time, but I was like, oh man, but this is finally my chance to, be that guy, be successful.
Yeah.
It's difficult for a guy to step away from that because we like that success, significance, egotistical image. It really appeals to us. But when you do step away and start giving away some of your work and some of your responsibilities, especially when you're a helper, a rescuer like we are, I thought, wow, this is going to be the hardest thing to give away because, God, you want to pair these people that I'm looking after, or you got to bring some other people in. And he did. There was someone there and they needed a job, and I got them to that client and they clicked. I'm like, great. Another person came along and they were great with that client. I'm like, this is kind of happening by itself at this point. And if I hadn't stepped away, these people wouldn't be enjoying their relationships, and they're now helping each other, and they're all being blessed by their time together, and they're making money out of it, and these wonderful things are happening. And for me personally, because I've got more time, suddenly my creative juices are flowing more, and I can do more of my website, and I can be more creative in my books, which doesn't necessarily make me lots of money, but it's really spiritually fulfilling for me. So interesting part of the life to
that's
journey
money
through.
In the bank, right? That's money in your wealth bank,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's times like this where you can personally, emotionally, and spiritually recharge that get you through the times when it's going to ramp up at some point, and you're going to be pushed, and it's going to be tough. And sometimes I think you just need these months and months and months of rebuild and recharge so that when that happens, you're ready, in the right place.
Absolutely. Now, I'd love you to share with everyone about Teachable, what you've created as a really great support system that we can access.
Yeah, and this might make a lot more sense to our listeners and viewers in the US. You probably heard of a website called teachable.com. On the request of a lot of people who have reviewed my self-guided therapy program, I've updated it to teachable.com so that it runs like an online course. For those of you who don't know about my online therapy program, the idea is here in Australia, when lockdown was happening, our suicide rate skyrocketed. And every time they would announce a new lockdown, suicide rates would skyrocket again. So people either couldn't or just wouldn't ask for help or engage in traditional therapy. Maybe they physically couldn't get there. Maybe financially they couldn't get there because they've lost their jobs. Whatever the reason, I had essentially 8 sessions of self-guided therapy, which you may think that it's difficult to be a therapist because everybody has really, really different problems. So believe me, after 12 years, I was repeating myself a lot. So it was surprisingly easy to break down the bulk of the issues which everybody is facing down into a very, very surprisingly short 8 sessions, and nothing that's really overcomplicated, but it's also profoundly effective in my experience at helping people find their emotional equilibrium, just understand some of the reasons why they're feeling the things they do, and just to make sense of their internal universe. And I should say, most of it's not written by me. It was the bulk of the theory behind it was passed on to me by a mentor, and so I actually felt quite responsible to make sure that this methodology wasn't lost to the world, didn't die with me, if you will. So I'm very pleased to be able to bring it, because this is back in the 1980s that this was sort of put forward, and I found it very revolutionary in my psychological process. So to be able to package it and sort of re-release it in a modern way to a modern audience is super important to me. So yeah, to get back to where I began, yes, it's on teachable.com. The easiest way to find it is to go to Rogue Therapies on Facebook, and I've got the links posted there. It's $11 US to do the course. You can get a look through when you go to there. If you want to have a quick brief flick through the sessions, not to know what you'd expect before you sign up, it's all there. So have a look. And of course, if anything doesn't make sense, just message us on Rogue Therapies and we can highlight the dark areas and make it understandable.
I love that. And $11. This is so cool, Philip, because it means that so many people are able to utilize your service, which is fantastic. So thank you for that. I think that's extremely important right now. There are people who need help, as you say, and financially, it's just too much of a stretch. $11 will probably be a lot more doable. So that's at teachable.com. So so Rogue Therapies on Facebook, go to that page, everyone, like it, connect with Philip there. That's a really good starting point. Roguetherapies.com is Philip's website, and those fantastic opportunities for those sessions, 8 sessions, for $11 is on teachable.com. Let's say people just go straight to Teachable. What do they search there?
The best thing to do would be to search for Rogue Therapies. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, easy as.
Easy. I love it. Especially when we're talking about shifting your mindset when you already feel completely overwhelmed. That's easy. Rogue Therapies.
Yeah, and to give you an idea of how it can work, I was rolling the program out to a gentleman by the name of Wayne last week. Wayne is here in Brisbane, and he runs an HR and auditing company from beneath his house. So his whole company is all of 10 people. But after doing some work with his company and some free online testing, he found that all of his company were testing borderline depressed. And naturally, he wants to take care of the mental and emotional health of his staff. So he contacted me and said, can I put my staff through your program? And I was like, yes, of course. And I said, let's sit down and I'll take you through it. So that way you've got an understanding of what the terminology is and a basic understanding of what the staff can expect. And then you can facilitate your staff if need be. And so Wayne was the only person in his company that didn't test borderline depressed. He's in a really great place in his life, loves his family, loves his work, really, really happy. And yet when we were going through some of the stuff and we were talking about some of the key concepts, there were all these aha moments he was having. He's like, is that why I feel that way? Is that why my son does that? And it's like, that actually makes sense about stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, okay. So this is, and we were there for 1 hour, just 1 hour, just having a quick run through. But he was just so much about his world was making sense, which is really great. Even people who are feeling great, feeling in control, there's always a little more you can learn about yourself. And it's great to know so much about yourself and just what makes you tick and what makes you motivated, because sometimes things are good and it's easy, and sometimes things are bad, and it's helpful to know those things. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's those moments can be real stumbling blocks, because you're already overwhelmed, already overloaded, you're already borderline depressed. And suddenly to go that extra step feels too much. So to have the simplicity is really important. And that simplicity then is actually affording us doorways that we can recognize and actually open.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be complicated. I mean, like I talked today about mindset, I think we can simplify it so much and just make it readily available and easily digestible, just by having like conversations like this and breaking down key terminology and asking ourselves the whys. I mean, why is such a great question to ask ourselves? And it's such an obvious question, but so often overlooked, right?
And quite often, the why question, the answer or response can be, I don't know. What do you do then? Well, it's just like, I don't know. That can feel so overwhelming when you just don't know.
Yeah, but that's fantastic. You've discovered something that you don't know about yourself. So what a great place to spend some time, get to know yourself a little better, do some exploring. Wonderful.
And having an opportunity like your teachable moments, I really like that, because sometimes it's just that helping hand to be able to explore that. Because when I'm in a place where I just don't know and I don't know what to do about it, I just feel like I'm stuck and I can't go forward. And sometimes it's that little thing, that one little thing that really is the glimmer in the dark. And that changes my focus, because suddenly I'm no longer saying, I don't know what to do. I'm saying, I don't really know what to do, but I'm going to look at this. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to try this. And that sort of takes me off that path where you've got the big roadblock that says, out of order, do not cross, to, here's your detour.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And what's cool has occurred to me a little just before is that we're talking about changing your mindset. And yet that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're just talking positively. We're talking about pressures and we're just sharing with each other and people listening. You're already changing your mindset just by engaging in this conversation.
Exactly. That's so true. That's so, so true. I'm currently listening to Anita Moorjani's book, Sensitive is the New Strong. It is so good. It is so, so good, everyone. So if you're a sensitive person, an empath, this is a really great book. I really recommend it highly. I'm listening to it on Audible at the moment. So every time I jump in the car, Philip, it's there. It plays. And it's great for me because I'm not the sort, I don't sit down and listen to a book, right? But when I'm driving, it's a great time.
Yeah.
It's just there. I'm
Yeah.
breathing in.
What a great way to you're also reinvesting yourself with what would otherwise be just lost time, right? Because you can't get that time back. So turned it into something productive. Good idea.
That's a great idea for me. And the other thing I find is that when I'm driving, sometimes my brain's just going, think, got to do, haven't done, must do. So by putting on a really positive book like that, it just uncaps all of that. And it's like, well, that doesn't even exist because I'm focusing on one thing, one positive thing. And it really does make a difference in my day and my world. And I'm getting so much good information out of it. So yeah, driving is a fantastic time to listen. Yeah.
Is there one key thing in that book that you've heard in the last little while, which like springs to your mind right now?
Yeah. I mean, I already knew, and so many things that I already know, but somehow listening to Anita narrate the book, read the book, I don't know what it is, but things that I already know are sinking in a different way. And part of that has been, for me, the things that I've been struggling with these past 4 years, where I know all the points already. I understand why this is happening. I understand why I've responded this way. And yet, but there was just something that I don't even know what it was, but it suddenly just opened a door. Oh, I didn't really think about it like that. So it's the thing that really springs to mind for me is it's not even about hearing anything new per se. It's about hearing information in a way that is somehow making a difference to me. And I really enjoy, I listened, I both read the book and listened to the book Dying to Be Me, also by Anita Moorjani. That was one of the most powerful books I've ever read or listened to. If you haven't checked it out, I really recommend you do, Philip. It's amazing. So it's not even about getting new information. Sometimes it's a different way. For some reason, we connect to it differently.
Sometimes what I find with people and especially when they initially engage in traditional therapy, is often when they're saying what they've been through and how far they've come, and you turn around and say, you've done really well. It's almost like it never even occurred to them that they had come so far, or they hadn't even given themselves permission to celebrate how much they'd done so far. Or maybe they had no idea what they'd done so far until you go, wow, you did this, you did this, you did this. And they're like, well, I suppose I did. You're like, that's amazing. So pat on the back. You're already halfway there. I'm like, I suppose I am already halfway there. Go me. Like,
go me. It's easy to get lost in the detail.
Yeah.
Not see that bigger picture. Oh, I really have made great strides there.
Yeah. Or we often minimize our contributions to ourselves. We'll see somebody else do the same thing. We'll be like, that's amazing. Good for you. And then we do it. We're like, oh, well, it's pretty average, I suppose.
I could do better.
Yeah, I could do better.
Oh, gosh. Well, Erin, it's great to have you with us. Welcome. It really just, I'm finding that shifting my mindset when I break it down like a jigsaw puzzle, like if I get a jigsaw puzzle, I don't look at all the pieces and go, I have to know where they all belong right now, right? So I start with the corners, start with the edge, everyone's got their own way. And I guess that's really indicative of shifting our mindset, isn't it? Shifting it from all the pieces to which piece goes on this corner.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing that's occurring to me while you're saying that is some of the reasons why we might not want to shift our mindset, even though we know we would be happier if we did. So think about you might think, oh, I don't like being this sort of person, but peer group A or parental father B expects me to be this sort of person. And yet I'm afraid to shift my mindset this way because how will they respond? Will they still accept me, respect me, and so forth? So are there any relationships in your life which are causing you even anxiety about the thought of shifting your mindset, perhaps?
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly an amazing journey, and it's one that whether we like it or not, we're all on it. That's the thing. We're already on it. And not giving ourselves such a hard time. So that's a great mind shift right there. Not giving ourselves such a hard time. Or making a decision like, oh, cake. Honestly, in a perfect world for me, Philip, cake is a staple food. I tell you, cake is the utopia of my existence some days. So I don't buy it, I don't make it, because I'll just eat it because it's amazing. But I went to my daughter's the other night and there was all this cake there and it wasn't even gluten-free, and I thought, oh, hang it. And so I ate some. And part of my brain's going, you shouldn't be eating this. The other part said, well, you know what? I am, so be quiet. And so it was shifting my mindset from I shouldn't be to, well, I've made this decision and that's it. It doesn't have to be a big deal than that.
Yeah, and what a great time to remind everybody that the single most dangerous word in the whole English language is the word should. So stop speaking it, and most importantly, stop saying it to yourself. Yeah. And your mindset will start to change very quickly.
I remember reading where Louise Hay said, she got us to write down 10 things that we should change. So we wrote them all down. And then she went back and said, okay, now write down exactly that thing, but where you said should, I should, you changed that to if I really wanted to, I could.
Excellent. So good.
Oh, if I really wanted to stop eating cake, I could. Fact is, I don't want to stop eating it, but I want to eat it in a balanced way, right?
Yep.
I don't want to eat cake every day. Well, I do want to eat cake every day, but I choose not to eat cake every day. As an example, whereas in the past, it was always, oh, and you'll hear this all the time. And I bet some of you have said this yourself. You go out, eat a piece of cake and you go, oh, that's going to go straight to my hips. I shouldn't have eaten that. So we've got this guilt associated with a food where the fact of the matter is, honestly, I made a decision a long time ago that if I'm going to eat cake, I'm going to eat it, enjoy it, and give thanks for it. Thank you, God. Thanks for creating cake. That was amazing.
Yep, so good. And all of that, all of the guilt is gone, right? You're just giving yourself permission to have a good day and permission to feel good.
Yeah.
There's no should, which is like, oh, now I'm guilt tripping myself. Oh, no, what have I done? Oh, I'm a disappointment to me. Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay. It really did change. It just changed the way I felt about myself, because that was a choice I made. And instead of making the choice and then denying I made the choice, it was almost like the cake forced me to eat it. Oh, no, I shouldn't have eaten it. This cake just rushed up at me and it just made me eat it.
But you're exactly right, because you say the word should, and suddenly it's so big, it's beyond your control. So the next time you're faced with your temptation, it's beyond your control. So you can't help but overcome it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's been a really good thing for me. And I've learned too that if I'm choosing not to eat cake, using cake as an example, what I might do some days, oh God, be in the supermarket and I'll see this cake and I'll think, oh God, I really want to buy that cake. And then I'll have a chat to myself and say, okay, it's okay. If you want the cake, you can have it. How much do you want it? Do you want it like a lot, or are you happy to say no today? I'm going to exercise the power of no today. And so I do that. And then I come home and think, I'm really glad I didn't buy that cake because, I've made a different choice that I think supports me better right now. And so the power of no is really important. It's not the no that says, no, I can't. It's the no that says, not this time round.
Yeah, and do you know what? Do you know what I think you're doing without doing it is you're separating your emotional and your rational brain just by having that conversation with yourself.
Ah.
This is it's very powerful with anger management clients because anger management clients have difficulty. Their emotional brain takes over, and before they know it, it's completely in control. But some of the like old as the hills therapy techniques are just literally screaming in your own mind, stop, flashing red lights, whatever it takes just to stop and just take a moment to disconnect and try to re-engage your rational brain. And once your rational brain kicks in, your emotional brain suddenly starts to go down, the voice gets down, the motivations get down. Suddenly you can think, no, I do want it, but like I say, not that bad. So I used to do this all the time when I wanted to impulse spend something. Like, oh, I want that thing so bad. It makes no sense, serves no purpose, but it's so shiny. So I just say, I tell you what, if I come back tomorrow and I still want it as bad, I'll buy it. I never bought it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'd have to go back a week after week after week and be like, I actually still want that thing. Yeah, let me get the shiny thing. But the amount of times I just go away, I don't even want it the next day. Didn't want it at all. But my emotional brain was screaming at me at the time, going, get the shiny thing. Yeah. Well done.
That's so fun. And that's actually how I gave up smoking. Now, I was a dedicated smoker. I did try and keep down to 50 a day, I have to say, tried very hard. And I was a really, fully dedicated smoker. I can't even tell you. And when I decided that it was time to stop smoking, God, I suffered. I really suffered. I felt like I'd lost my best friend, the one thing in the world I could count on through thick and thin, any time of the day or night, no matter what. So when I identified that was how I was feeling, I actually used that same technique to give up smoking. Or actually, I didn't give it up. I stopped. So I bought a packet of cigarettes and I stuck them on top of the fridge. And I said to myself, if I still want to have a cigarette in 1 minute, I'm going to have it. Okay. And I'd be there watching the thing. Okay, how many seconds to go? How many, really, literally, how many seconds to go? Oh my God. And I'd be jittery, how many seconds? Okay, I can have a cigarette. Okay. If I want a cigarette in 30 seconds, I'm going to have it. And this is really laborious, but this is how I gave up smoking, like a really super full-on addiction, to the point where some days I would have to use Ventolin to open my airways enough to get the smoke inside my lungs. I'm talking a serious addiction. So that was how I finally stopped smoking. And it was one day, how you never move your fridge? Well, I don't. So one day, years later, probably 10 years later, God, I don't know, it could have been 2 years, I don't know. I moved the fridge, and what was behind the fridge that had fallen down was this packet of cigarettes. Wow. I hadn't even missed them, hadn't even given them a thought. Wow. But it did take me 6 months to fully decide. So then it was, if I still want a cigarette in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, if I want a cigarette later on today, if I want a cigarette after dinner. And so you've helped me understand why that process works so well for me.
Yeah, what a great approach. Yeah, well done. I'm sure that'll be helping someone.
Just an accident. I didn't even know I was doing it. I just thought maybe I can get through this next minute. And I got through the minute. And so really that was the way open. That was the detour away from those cigarettes. My whole tunnel vision was on those cigarettes. So I took the detour just for a minute, because I can come back. I know where they are. So it's funny what works for us. And I love the fact that you've explained it, because it helps us. I would love to know from you guys how you feel about that, having that explanation and maybe deeper understanding to broaden your horizons of your understanding as well.
And talking about changing our mindset, we should definitely spend a little bit of time exploring our self-destructive behaviors, because a lot of us like where we are, even though we are sick, scared, afraid. For some people, that's just their safe place. And it's difficult to move past that place until you can really accept the purpose of self-destruction and the reasons why you're not ready to move on from that place yet. Because you can look at the place you want to be, and it just seems so far away from the place you are now, and it can be crippling to think of the steps you need to get there. But it's just because emotionally there's something which is you're protecting. You just don't feel ready to cross that bridge, or ready to face that new thing. It gets to a place where the desire for it is so great. You can be terrified to lose it, and that fear can be crippling enough to keep you from ever engaging in it in the first place. Is that making any sense, Anaya?
All the sense in the world, love. We've got Helena with us, and she says that is so cool, Anaya. So it's sharing of the ideas, and that makes sense to me as well. So we're not here telling people what to do, which I forgot to tell you all. We'll never tell you what to do. And Angel Heart Radio programs, really, please, they are not to be used to replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice or your own sound judgment. We're here to support you, give you the opportunity to have a think about things maybe a different way, maybe to help you with ideas and thoughts that are not new to you at all. But somehow it's that jigsaw puzzle piece that begins to bring it all together. Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm glad I thought of that right near the end of the show.
Yes, well done. Yeah, so let me give you an example of self-destruction from my life, because my favorite kind of self-destruction is procrastination. I'm just a fantastic procrastinator, and I'm so good at justifying it too, because I can procrastinate and I can draw pictures, I can go to the gym, I can write stuff, I can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things, except the one thing I was supposed to be doing. So the question is why? Why am I so terrified of digging deep into the thing I want to do? Like, I don't know, designing a website, which could help millions of people across the world because they can't reach therapy. Like, why would I not do that? Well, the reason is, on some level, I'm afraid of what will happen if I do. I mean, let's face it, if you are putting a product out there, if you're making yourself public, if you're standing behind something, if you're making money, you're vulnerable, and somebody will come at you. Somebody would go, "You're crap," or "Your stuff sucks," or it's just going to happen. And until you're ready to embrace that, you're just going to self-destruct, right? You're going to do anything except the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Oh, yes. You're speaking my language. You really are. Honestly, it's so true, because, when we're sitting here and, where we're chatting away together, and it looks like we've got all our ducks in a row, and, we've got it all together. But the fact of the matter is that, it's not always, doing this when I first started was so terrifying to me. And yet it was that drive. I knew my guidance was telling me this is so important. And yet there are still days where I can completely procrastinate. I might need to, Helena says fear of success. You got that, sweetheart? There are some days, some days I need to create, some a graphic for Angel Heart Radio or whatever, for angellight777.com, and it's like, I'll do it in a minute. Oh, yeah, that's right. I really have to make a cup of tea. That's what I'll do first. Think about cake while I'm doing it. Not really. But you know what I mean? It's the little things that can get me off. And then other days I am so on point. So I've learned now to know that sometimes if I'm really struggling with procrastination, I give myself some time. So, okay, I'm going to schedule in procrastination time, because that helps me. Helena says, Philip, how do you get past it? Get a coach, mentor, set goals. Well, guess what? I know just the person for you. And he's sitting right here. His name's Philip Duxfield. You can already see he's awesome. He's right here on Facebook, Helena. at Rogue Therapies. You'll find him there, roguetherapies.com, and on Teachable. Can you just quickly recap for Helena what you've made available, please, Philip?
So on teachable.com, we have self-guided therapy available now for $11, which essentially, in theory, could replace your therapist. And rather than having to ask for help to self-regulate, you can just sort of go through it yourself. Ideally, we want to see how well it goes.
Yeah.
But great advice, Helena. And I would say that to anybody, find some help, set some goals. I really, really can't do goal setting, but that's because I'm far more tended towards ADHD. So if I drink a lot of coffee, I can get really, really focused. But then I'll get really, really sleepy as well at some point. So unfortunately, goal setting never worked for me. With me overcoming procrastination, I had to do a couple of things. I had to clarify my goals. Because it took a while to realize I was working hard for somebody else. I was working hard for my parents because they're quite successful. And I wasn't working hard because I wanted to. I was working hard because I thought they expected me to. So until I gave up wanting to make money and just focused on actually what's important to me, what do I want to be doing, that helped me to find some motivation. Then dealing with, it's funny, in AA, you say that you have to schedule yourself procrastination time. If I schedule myself 2 or 3 of work hours and go, look, I'll work hard in the morning and then I can take the afternoon off, then I can be really, really proactive. I have found I work super, super well if I leave the house and go to a cafe or a bar, but I'm super unproductive at home. So it's finding out where I'm productive as well. Because when I'm at home, I've got way too much to do, right? I got my guitar, I got swords I can play with, stupid stuff everywhere. But it was a real journey of finding out what was wrong with me in the first place. And second, what's going to work for me personally with addressing these flaws that I have.
And that's so important, because when we understand what it is for us, because we may not fit in the mold that works for, 99.9% of the people, right? I mean, that's so important. And Helena, she's such a champion. She's already noted. I've noted the websites. She's got your website down. And don't forget Rogue Therapies here on Facebook. And the cool thing that I have to mention is that Philip is very open to just receiving a direct message.
Oh, that's cool too. Yeah, we're not pay per message or pay per service. We just like to chat to people and say, hey, what's going on in your world? We're pretty sure.
There you go. Make sure you take advantage of that too, because I really love that. I think that makes a big difference to people when they know that in that moment, that one moment where you think, I just don't know what to do, you can send a direct message. Even if it was, I don't know what to do, can you help me?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. That's what makes a difference. So this is really cool. I'm loving this. I love the fact that we can utilize all these different aspects of technology and social media to really support us instead of draining us, as sometimes they can be very draining, especially if we find it difficult to unplug, which is pretty common for lots of us. It's wonderful to know that there is a way that even though we're not feeling that we can unplug, we can actually do something useful and valuable in that moment for ourselves to help lead us onto a path that's going to feel more nurturing and productive for us.
And we want everybody to be not only masters of themselves, but so empowered they can go out and they can help everybody around them as well. And I want to empower people to do the job I can't do. I can't be everybody's therapist, but I can make everybody into everybody else's therapist. Honestly, it's super easy. I hate how the psychological community has mystified the process. It's just not that complicated. And over here, there are regulations and there are memberships, and people can't get into psychology because it's too regulated, and it just doesn't have to be. You can't have any Tom, Dick, or Harry open a business and say, I'm a great therapist. It's like, well, you might not be. You might be terrible, actually, but that's okay. You can be special somewhere else. But I also believe that we can empower everybody to help everybody else in such a significant way that's we can really untap this resource.
And I love, especially, that you've made these courses $11.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I'm really jazzed about that. because that makes it accessible. So as Philip said, in an ideal world, right? We're talking about there is a balance here. If you need this assistance from a professional person who's qualified to do the job, Philip's a great place to start. See if you connect, if you resonate, if you respond. And as Philip was saying earlier, there are times where he will just connect other people together and it's a great fit. So it's not like you've got to go to Philip and there's nothing else available. If you don't, whoopsie, it's going to be bad.
Well, I hope not. But
Philip's a great place to begin, and then take the journey and just see how it goes. Wonderful. So we are, last few minutes, Philip. Geez, it goes by so fast, doesn't it?
Every time. Yeah, every time.
Every time. So next month, we're going to be with you on the second Tuesday of the month, everyone. And then we'll go back to, as far as we know at this point in time, in January, the third Tuesday of each month in Australia. So that's the third Monday in the USA. And next month, it will be the second Monday of the month in the USA, that timeline at 8:30 Eastern, 10:30 a.m. here in Brisbane, Australia. You know, what a great place to be for an hour. Always great. It's always fun too.
Always good to see you, Anna, and always good to see everybody else or speak with everybody else listening from across the world. Thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you along.
Wonderful. Thanks, Philip. Stay with me for a minute, love. Thank you, everyone. You know, remember to be really kind to you and support yourself because, you know, look, you matter. You matter. You really matter. There is something in the world called compassion that we have for other people and kindness. It's very important that we also extend that to ourselves, but extend it to ourselves first, because that then builds our capacity to share it with others. And our whole life gets better. Our whole life will flourish. And no matter where you're starting from, if you start to become kind to yourself, it will begin the journey for you. So take good care. Keep an eye open on angelheartradio.com. You'll find our show guide there, who's on, when we're on. And of course, right here on our Facebook page. You know, we love connecting with you. Let us know what you would like us to present for you on Angel Heart Radio in 2022. And we'll do our best to make that happen. Thanks again, Philip. Thanks, everyone. Lots of love. Bye. Remember, you're amazing. Oh, hang on a second. I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm amazing too, even when I press the wrong button.
Amen to that.
Guys.